Hello everyone! My name is Hannah Zimmerman and I am the Marketing and Communications Director at Historic Locust Grove. I'm here on Locust Grove's porch to talk to you today about mindfulness and gratitude in communication. Locust Grove is a historic site that dates back to 1792, so we like to say that Locust Grove is where Louisville begins. So today we're going to look at some of the historic letters from the past here at Locust Grove and also enjoy some of our beautiful natural spaces as we consider all the different ways we can be mindful in our communication with others and also be grateful for all the small things that we have to enjoy every day. 200 years ago, social distancing was common because we often lived far apart from our family and friends. The Crons who lived here at Locust Grove had lots of friends and relations all across the country and the world. William Cron was born in Dublin, Ireland, and then emigrated to the United States, first living in Pennsylvania. His wife Lucy Clark Cron was born in Virginia, and they moved west with the entire Clark family in the late 1780s. They settled here in Louisville, but the Clark family kept growing. William and Lucy had 8 children. Lucy was one of 10 children, and she had many siblings who also had children, and they had visitors here at Locust Grove quite often. But when they weren't visiting with their family and friends, they were writing letters to people in New York, in New Orleans, in Missouri, and St. Louis. Letter writing was an excellent way to keep in touch with all the news happening with your family and friends, to let them know you were thinking of them, to be grateful for the times that you have together, and to be able to tell all the little funny stories that we enjoy. Letter writing was the 19th century version of social media. Okay, so before we get started, let's talk about why mindfulness and gratitude in communication is so important. When we are being mindful, we are being thoughtful. And when we're communicating mindfully, we're choosing our words carefully. We're making sure that our words are going to have a positive impact on the people around us, the people who are hearing and receiving the words that we are sharing. When we're communicating mindfully, we're aware of everything that's happening around us, everything that's happening in the other person's life, and everything we might want to share with them. It's also really important when we're mindful to be grateful that we can communicate with people that we care about. And we, of course, want to show them that we are grateful for their presence in our lives. Right now, during a time of physical distance that sometimes feels a little weird, it's so important to show the people around us, even when they're far away, that we care about them. That's what the Crons and Clarks of Locust Grove did. They wrote letters all the time to friends, relatives, and neighbors all across the country, letting them know what was happening here at Locust Grove and finding out what was happening in other places. It's a wonderful way of communicating, even if you don't get an instant response. It's also a way to send a little joy to someone else. Receiving a letter can be so unexpected, and it's so wonderful to be able to give that unexpected gift to someone else in a way that they know we really mean everything that we say. Sending a letter is just showing that we care and that we're grateful for someone in our lives. So, for today's exercise in mindfulness and gratitude in our communication, you'll need 2 things. 1, something to write with, and 2, a piece of paper. And yes, it does have to be a piece of paper. Today, we're putting our words on paper and not online. While you're getting your pen and your paper, let's take a minute to enjoy the beauty of Locust Grove from the back porch. While you were getting your supplies, I noticed something really wonderful here on the porch. Let me show you. Look how beautiful! Isn't it wonderful to just sometimes look around and notice all the tiny little things we might have missed if we weren't paying attention? I love that. Do you have your supplies? Great. Now, let's find somewhere comfortable where we're going to write our letter. I think I'm going to stay here on the porch. Now that we're all comfy, let's think of who we're going to write to. Maybe it could be a parent or a grandparent, a brother, a sister, a friend, a neighbor, a teacher, a classmate, someone you don't know very well but would like to know more about. someone you're grateful for, someone who brings you joy, who helps you, someone who makes you think or makes you laugh, someone you miss, and someone you wish you could talk to more often. I think I know who I'm going to write to. Do you? While we think about that person that we are going to write to and maybe some of the things we want to say, let's read into the letters from the Cron and the Clark families way back in the 18th and 19th centuries to see what sorts of things they shared with each other through letters when they were far apart. The letters I'm going to share with you were transcribed from the originals. There may have been things that we couldn't read that were illegible or that were left out, so they're presented to you as best as we can read them. Here's a letter from General George Rogers Clark to Thomas Jefferson. George Rogers Clark to Thomas Jefferson, Carolina, October 12, 1783. With this, you will receive those shells that I mentioned in the last letter I did myself the honor of writing to you. They are found in good abundance in the small branches of the highest part of the Kentucky country. In the state they will appear to you in. I am sorry it hath not been in my power to procure the bonus that I promised you. The intent of the place whom they are found is such that a small party dare not venture in time of war. Bring to enemy than our own settlements of the expedition last fall. I flattered myself that I should procure the number that I wanted, as a considerable party of men was ordered to the place to hunt. But the mud and banks those homes lay in was so frozen that it was impossible they could get them, having nothing to dig with, but the small tomahawks all those lying on the surface being formerly carried off. But as you may now be certain of them in the course of the next year, as the person that have engaged to get them for me may do, is with the greatest safety the difficulty of conveying them to you will be, as of per numbers will frequently office is thereby the way of Pittsburgh or Orleans, you will also receive a few of what the Kentucky call a coffee tree. It makes a bountiful shade, and I believe will flourish with you. As I expect to spend the ensuing winter and spring in the western country far from all public concern, of which I have had too much experience to think of dabbling again, is will give me pleasure to you any kind of information in my that you could wish for. I have the honor to be, it is with the greatest esteem, G. Clark. Here's a letter from Anne Cron Jessup to Lucy Clark Cron. Anne was the daughter of William and Lucy Cron, who lived at Locust Grove. Anne grew up at Locust Grove and was the fourth child and first daughter of the 8 Cron children that grew up at Locust Grove. Anne Cron Jessup to Lucy Clark Cron. Georgetown, September 29th, 1823. My dear Mamma, by the last mail I received your letter. I will not pretend to tell you the happiness it afforded me. I could scarcely believe it was from you, and read it over and over again until I knew every word by heart. In truth, I had despaired of receiving a letter from you, and wrote to Nicholas not to tantalize me with that hope again. I sometimes think I write to you all too often, but 'tis much a pleasure to me that I will not willingly give it up, although I know there is very little that I can say that will be interesting to you, your not being acquainted with any person here. The same mail that brought your letter also brought one from sister. She had a very fatiguing journey in. Charles was at the Springs. I shall be very much disappointed if he does not return this way. I write to sister very often, at least 2 letters to her 1, and I certainly have not so much leisure as she has. I found I had fallen off so much on my music that I play a great deal to recover it. I shall take 1 lesson a week, which will be quite enough. We give 50 cents a lesson, which is cheap enough, and $6 a month for the piano. Tell Nicholas we will see which will make the better progress in French. I do not care about learning, but the general was so anxious that I at last consented to get a teacher. I have lately received a present that I know brother John would beg from me. 'Tis an inkstand made of a petrification found at the Rock of Gibraltar, that, with a beautiful strand of necklace, was presented to me by a friend of the general's, who has recently returned from Europe. Lucy Ann continues to grow very fast. She is teething, I think, by her biting everything she can get a hold of. She is now sitting on the rug with her foot in her mouth, since they put on the pretty little blue shoes that General Macomb brought from New York for her. I can't keep her feet out of her mouth. Directly I finish this, I'm going to look at the carpeting we had brought from New York. I would rather not get Brussels, as our 2 rooms will take 125 yards, And it is $2 a yard. The ingrain carpeting is very pretty and only half the price. I think we had better get that. I give my love to my dear brothers, and pray write to me again, my dear mamma. We are all in very good health. Your affectionate daughter, A. H. Jessup. Postscript. I see your letter is dated on the 1st, and I only received it yesterday. If you would direct to the general, I should get them much sooner. Always let us hear of Mr. Clay's health, for I am asked so often. Okay, do you know who you're going to write to? That's great. Now, let's think about some of the things that we are going to ask them and tell them in our letter. Maybe we can ask them what they've been reading or watching or eating lately. I always like to ask people what they've been eating because number one, I love food, and number two, one of my favorite things is sharing a meal with a friend. So even when I can't do that like right now, it's nice to hear what other people are eating because it feels like I'm sharing that meal with them. Maybe we can also ask them what their favorite part of their summer has been, even though it might not have looked the way they were expecting. You can even ask them what the weather's like. It's been really rainy here in Louisville lately. What are some things that you want to tell your friend? What are some things that you want to ask them? What are some things you think they would like to know about you? While you were thinking about all the things you want to say in your letter, here's what it looks like at Locust Grove today. So, when we were beginning the letter, it's always nice to say hello. You can do that by writing, Dear so-and-so, or hello, or hi, or ahoy, however you want to start. Just start. Just let your friend know what you're thinking and feeling, because the best part is that they are hearing from you. Then take a few minutes to write down your answers to some of the questions I asked you. What you want to know about them, what you want to tell them, and what that you think they want to know about you. Here are some examples from the Cron family. Here is a letter from William Cron to his sons, Nicholas and Charles Cron, when they were away at school. William Cron to Nicholas and Charles Cron, Locust Grove, June 19, 1816. Dear Nicholas and Charles, I received the letter you wrote, with several other letters you wrote a few days before. From those letters, I am sorry to observe that you don't appear satisfied with your situation at the college, which I think, in a great measure, proceeds from improper advice given to you by one of the two boys at college. You and those boys were informed of the rules that were to be observed at college, and should conform to them. You were sent there with the view of improving your education, which no doubt you will do if attentive to the instructions of the professors. Don't let the idle conversations of a few unruly boys who wish to come home have an effect on you. When you write letters, let them be wrote by yourselves. I received the letter you wrote by the young French gentleman, who I suppose informed you of their spending an evening on board the steamboat with your mother, sisters, and myself. Edmund continues at the seminary in Louisville, learning Latin, etc. I lately heard from your brothers, George and William. They were well and expect to be home, George in 5 or 6 weeks, William soon after. When they come, no doubt they will pay you a visit. You must try by all means to be reconciled to your situation at college. You now have an opportunity of improving in your education. Therefore, let me beg you would be attentive and lose no time. Should you pass over this favorable opportunity, you never will have it in your power to improve to such advantage again. Let me hear from you frequently, and should you be in want of a little money or anything I can send, let me know, and I will send it. Your affectionate father. William Cron, June 25th. Since writing the foregoing, I received 3 letters from you, and your brother Edmund and sisters Anne and Eliza. Dear Charles, I have received your letter and am glad to understand by it that you have conducted yourself so well as to not have a bad mark since you went to college. Pray, my dear Charles, try to improve in your education. You now have a much better opportunity of doing it than you will ever have again. As to your coming home the 4th of July, you must not think of it. I wish very much to see you and Nicholas, but cannot think of your losing the time at present, and I must try to see you if in my power. I am, my dear, your affectionate father, William Cron. Okay, now that you've taken a few minutes to put words on a page, it's time to end your letter. I always like to say, warmly, or hugs, or love, or thinking of you, Hannah. However you want to end your letter, make sure you do so with kindness and joy and gratitude for all that your friend brings to your life. So, now that we've finished our letter, it's time to put it in an envelope, stick on a stamp, write on the address, and stick it in the mailbox. Isn't it so wonderful to know that we're going to be sending a little bit of joy to someone we care about? Even though we don't always get a response right away to the letters we get, sending the letter is a great gift that we can give to ourselves because we were thinking very carefully about what we wanted to say to someone we care about. And it's also a wonderful gift to give to other people, to share how much we care about them and how grateful we are for them with that person. Friends, it has been so wonderful to be with you today to write a letter to someone we care about. I hope you enjoyed it, and just know, if you ever write me a letter, I promise I will write you back. Until then, I'll be seeing you at Locust Grove.